summer top and I have the most gorgeous fabric. Hi, my name is Lea. I studied fashion design where I had the most fabulous teacher in pattern making. Her name is Lily, and I was also working in a studio studying professionally for that time. But after that I had totally enough of it and studied computer science. But now I'm back and I'm showing you how you can make your dream summer wardrobe yourself. To make the Lala top, I named it after my friend. You need the pattern, I will link that in the caption, and some fabric. The fabric should be a bit flowy, and I prefer linen viscose blends, or like a super lightweight cotton if you can find that. And just make sure you pre-wash the fabric so that when you want to wear your top after the next wash, it still fits. You also need some elastic, and that's basically it. Here we have the pattern, and when you print the first page, just make sure that the sizing is right. You have to adjust when you print and choose the print 100% box. Just check that box, and then we can just tape it together. What I like to do, you don't have to, you can just match the crosses, but I prefer to just quickly cut it down. That's a bit easier, I feel like. Make sure you check the size chart to get the right size, and then cut it out. And now we're gonna cut. Because this fabric was torn and not cut, and now this edge is straight. And here I have the woven edge, and I also pinned it down to make sure it's going to be super straight. Now I'm generously pinning the pattern onto the fabric, especially in the edges, and even more so when I cut with scissors. If you have, and when you can, I would use only dedicated fabric scissors for fabric. Never cut paper with the fabric scissors, but what I prefer is the roller blade, which makes it super precise while cutting, and I like to use this. With this as well, do not cut paper. Important to note, the back and front piece I pin to the folded edge of the fabric, and I'm not going to cut where it's folded. With this, you can also cut it that way, as long as this one is straight. It doesn't matter if this or that way, unless you have a pattern. This is the bottom. So if you have flowers that rise this way, for example, you can't do this, you just have to do like that. But otherwise, you can also easily do it like this. For the straps, I'm tearing them instead of cutting them. And also for the tunnel, if you have the XXL, just make sure if you put it on fold that your fabric is wide enough, otherwise cut it twice. I added 2 centimeters. You can subtract that when testing if it's cuttable on fold, otherwise you have to sew it together to get one long strap. But yeah, so for all other sizes you can just tear it, and I'm just gonna check the width, and then I cut it. So this is only gonna work if the fabrics woven like this and not for like a jersey or a fabric that has like a diagonal woven. And another one. Now you should have 2 of those for the straps. Then you need 1 for the tunnel. You need this one twice. And you should have 4 layers of the bust piece. For the elastic, I would preferably measure once underneath your bust. It should be comfortable, tight but not too tight. And just add about 1 centimeter so that you can sew it together. And I'm using elastic that's about this thick. Also once around the waist. Now we're ironing the straps in half and also the tunnels, but I'll show you that just now. For the 2 tunnels, we're basically making something like bias tape, and since we folded it into half before, now you can just fold it to the middle, the one edge and the other one as well, and just iron this flat. Now we have 2 tunnels, 2 straps, 2 times this one. For this piece, for the bust piece, it's important to note that this is the front. So I'm gonna make a little cross here, 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 and here. I'm just using a very normal coloring pencil and I'm wetting the tip a little bit, and this washes out super easily. I generally choose a light color, but don't use pens to mark. You can easily use these colors or chalk. And now we're ready to sew the straps. The foot is always 7 millimeters, and this first line is 1 centimeter. So since we are going to make the straps 1 centimeter wide, I'm just gonna start sewing here. Stitch length about 2.5 at the start, and in the end I'm just gonna stitch a little bit and then stitch back to make it not fall apart. For the strap, I like to cut it on the open edge a little bit back. For straps, I like to zigzag the edge because it gives a bit more security, it's not gonna frame. And for that, I'm just gonna do the stitch wide a little bit wider, and yeah, like that. Doesn't need to be perfect, but I prefer that to the overlock because the overlock's just gonna make it chunkier when you turn the strap inside out. Now I'm turning the straps inside out, and for that I'm just using a safety pin and then I'm just like pulling it through. then when you're done turning it inside out, we're just going to iron. Okay. Now we're gonna sew the boss pieces together. For that, we're putting them together first. It is important that the nice side of the fabric faces the nice side of the fabric. If you have that, if it's on both sides the same, it doesn't matter. And just like you cut it, like front to front, and like that. We're going to take the strap and open this piece up. We're placing it here, and then we're closing again and pinning it down. Now we're going with 1 centimeter seam allowance, so up here, back and forth, and down here again. Here it's super important that you check that the strap is not in the seam allowance, so I'm like massaging it a little bit in. And then here we're gonna go back and forth. If you have both your pieces now and you're sure the strap is not sewn in and flexible, you can just check quickly. Then you can zigzag the edge or overlock it. I'm gonna use the overlocker, but it is not necessary since this is going to be turned inside anyways. Now these ones you need to leave long. Now when we have the 2 cups, we're turning them inside out, and we will iron. Oh, we need the 2 pieces. And we're putting the nice side of the fabric onto the nice side of the fabric. And we're pinning the sides together, here and there. Now we're just sewing the sides together with 1 centimeter seam allowance again. After sewing them together, I'm gonna overlock the edges on both sides as well, but you can also just zigzag them. If you want, you can also now overlock the bottom edge already. Now we're just ironing it to one side. To the front, facing each other. So that this is facing this direction, this is facing that direction. Now we're taking the cups and we have marked here the front, so this is facing inside. And here again we've marked the front, so this is facing each other. Now we're putting it inside, and here the seam is facing frontward, and we're taking the corner of the cup and putting it exactly on the seam. And pinning it down. This we're going to do for both sides. Just match the other cup to the other seam and make sure that the front pieces we've marked are facing each other. Now we're folding the side of the bias tape in, and it's important that it's folded open, and then we're going to pin it, and we're pinning it on the side where the cups are and just matching it to the side of the seams. And now we're going to pin all around along the cups and the back. Here again I'm cutting it back and matching it to the other one and folding it in like this. And now we're going to sew along here with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now we're ironing it down all around and in the back as well, just like this. And then we can step it here along the bottom of the tunnel, and we have the perfect tunnel for the elastic. When you finished ironing, you can also pin it down so it keeps flat when sewing. Since the stitch is going to be visible, I adjust the stitch length to 3 or 4, like a little bit longer. The tunnel just below the bust is slightly wider than the tunnel in the middle, like the tunnel at the waist. So instead of following at the edge immediately, I'm actually following foot wide at the edge. So I'm matching the side of the sewing machine foot to the edge of the tunnel, which is about 7 millimeters. To finish up the bottom of the top, I'm just going to iron it up, and I've overlocked, but you can also zigzag, or you can just leave it all together and just iron it up again, and then we're going to sew along the bottom edge. For the second tunnel, we're just gonna measure 8 centimeters down, like this. Then place the second tunnel here. And here. And we keep measuring from the bottom edge just below the bust, and in the back as well, just from the top. We keep measuring down 8 centimeters and pinning down the tunnel. When we're finished pinning it all around, we can cut back the tunnel if it's not already in the right length, and we're folding it back in and matching it to the other end of the tunnel. Now we can sew along right at the edge of the tunnel on both sides, top and bottom, and I'm starting where I have the opening, but it's important that we leave the opening for the tunnel. Now you need a safety pin, and put it at the end of the elastic. We're now going to put in the elastics. Just pulling it through the tunnel. Now put it on top of each other, pin it together. Now we're gonna sew back and forth. Make sure it is very flat and not twisted anywhere. And I'm also just pulling through the elastic through the second tunnel, so I have both ready to sew together. Perfect, and here again on this end. And now we're going to sew together the second elastic, and then we're done.